and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. I'm actually doing a standing video today. My swivel chair that I have been using keeps sort of gradually spinning me away from the camera, obviously trying to send me a message, but don't worry, I won't be deterred. Might as well just give standing a go, eh? Feels good so far. I could do this. Today I'm going to be talking about 3 murder mystery novels from the lovely Lucy Foley. We have The Hunting Party, The Paris Apartment, and The Guest List. Now these are 3 very solid, very fast-paced, very enjoyable novels in my opinion. You're not going to come out of it at the end thinking, I'm a new person. But that's really not the point of reading books in this genre. It's about escapism and being hooked. You know, the thing I like about murder mysteries is you get what you pay for. You know that minimum you're going to get a dead person, an investigation, the opportunity to form your own airtight theory that you would bet your life savings on, and then a big revelation at the end that completely unravels that theory 9 times out of 10. What more could you want? So I'm going to do a short review of each of these 3 books because while they are all exactly the same, they are also completely different. First, I'm going to review The Paris Apartment. I read this one the most recently out of the 3 books I'm reviewing today because it only just came out in New Zealand, I think on the 14th of March? No, that's 3 days from now. I think, I don't know, sometime in the last couple of weeks anyway. And I've really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. It is of course set in Paris, and a girl named Jess, who is a bit of a mess, leaves her bartending job in England to go and visit her brother Ben, the 10, at his Parisian apartment, only to find no Ben. Amen. So the story is mostly set in this very grand, very mysterious, very dark apartment building. And it basically revolves around Jess trying to get to the bottom of what happened to Ben. And she's also trying to work out why all the neighbours are being so shady. In Lucy Foley style, we've got a number of different narrators, and the neighbours, at least, are not particularly reliable narrators. I liked that it flicked between each of the characters. I was never like, oh, you again, when it came to a different character. Like, the chapters were very short. I found the perspectives in all the different characters very interesting and weird. So it was very fast-paced. It started really strong with a lot of suspense, and then I thought it kind of dwindled in the middle, and then it really picked up again in the end. And actually there were a couple of really big bombs dropped in the middle, so it really never got boring. Those bombs were nuclear. I'm actually still a bit shook by some of it. Voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir, said Ben. Would love to discuss more of the details around that, but I'm not going to because it's a new booksy, so no spoily. Wee. A great thing about it was that I did not pick the twists. In actual fact, I was more at the other end of the spectrum where I was like, sacre bleu, there is more going on here than I anticipated. It's all quite outrageous. 2 little pet peeves that I had were, one of the characters guessed this password on their 3rd go. Personally, I wouldn't have even been able to get that password if it was my own password. And sometimes the narrative would jump very abruptly back in time, like right in the middle of a chapter or a paragraph. You'd suddenly be back without much warning, so that caused a little bit of confusion for me, but won't dwell on any of that. So yeah, that is The Paris Apartment. Have you read it? Please let me know. I would love to hear what you thought of it. I gave it 4 stars personally. So next we have The Guest List. And I can't decide whether I prefer The Guest List or The Paris Apartment. I also gave this one 4 stars, and I think it was my favourite overall. I'm going to lock in The Guest List as my favourite. Thank you. However, I did read this one first. So it had a little bit of an unfair advantage because I was new to the game. It had the wow factor. I was young and naive. So the premise. We have a destination wedding on an island off the coast of Ireland. Island by Ireland. The dream. We have the bride, Jules, a successful, beautiful magazine publisher who is also very controlling and may have anger management issues. Then we have the groom, the very handsome Will, who is a up-and-coming TV star. And then we've got a number of wedding guests who are the various friends and family members of the bride and groom, of course. And it becomes clear that there are many secrets and past dramas and rivalries going on between them all, betwixt. There is also the wedding planner, whom we must not forget about, called, just looked up the pronunciation, Aoife, would you believe it? So those are the characters. None of them, or at least most of them, weren't particularly likeable, and I feel like that's kind of Lucy Foley's forte, writing about terrible characters, but it's good because it makes us think that any of them could be a suspect, because of course somebody gets murdered at the wedding. I can confidently say that I found the guest list to be the most thrillery of the 3 books I'm reviewing today. There were some definite I'm on edge moments, and I feel like I was set up for that right from the beginning of the book, because they had to sail out over some very choppy, dangerous seawater to get to the island, and that's my worst fear. And the skipper wasn't helping. He was like, oh, it's pretty dangerous out here, we've had a lot of deaths. Alright, mate, we're only on page 10 here. So yeah, it could have ended there for me probably, and I would have been quite satisfied, but it went on. Yeah, I think Lucy Foley does suspense very well. It's not too over the top, but it definitely gets you hooked. Again, the narration switched between the various characters, and I am absolutely terrible with names, so I really appreciated the way that Lucy Foley named the character that was going to be narrating that chapter, and also put like a little note just so you could be absolutely certain you knew who was talking, which was good. It's a bit of a pet peeve of mine when books, murder mysteries, or whatever genre, have so many different characters with different nicknames, and the other characters talk about them real out of context, and you're like, who? Like, I'm so bad with names, it might be a disability. And why make it hard to follow? Do you not want people to understand your book? Do you just want a little exclusive group of readers with excessive brain cells to be in your fan club? Maybe actually. That could actually be it. But yeah, there's no need for that. Just keep it simple, Simon. And Lucy Foley does that, so thank you. Thanks, Luce. Yeah, this book was great, kept you hooked. Again, really fast paced, short chapters, so big tick from me, 4 stars. I would love to hear what your opinion is if you've read it as well. Please comment below. And let's move on. So lastly we have The Hunting Game, and this was my least favourite of the 3, but I still gave it 3 stars, and I still thought it was worth reading. So we've got a group of 9 or so adults, which are a core group of friends from university and their partners, and they go away for a New Year's break to an exclusive hunting lodge somewhere out in the Scottish Highlands. There's a blizzard, they get snowed in, and it all turns to a dessert made with milk, eggs and sugar, otherwise known as custard. Why am I like this? So they're on their own at this exclusive hunting lodge, apart from Doug, the gamekeeper, Heather, the manager, and this random Icelandic couple who somehow managed to get a booking, even though our main group had booked the whole place out. They were probably pretty happy with themselves until they got stranded. And I think that's basically everyone. So we've got heaps of drama, we've got interpersonal drama, financial drama, drugs, alcohol, partying, backstabbing, relationships crumbling, and someone dies. Again, really not super likeable characters. Like the worst people, like dicks. They were dicks. But they were just openly really mean to each other. And it's like, why are you forcing this holiday to happen? Like, just let each other go, please. And one thing that I didn't really like about it, and this is not fair at all, is the setting. Just the like snowy, blizzardy kind of hunting lodge thing wasn't really for me, which, yeah, like I say, isn't fair at all. But I definitely read for escapism, even if I am escaping to a murderous location. You know, I'd still prefer Paris, so you can at least picture the Eiffel Tower while you're reading about somebody getting brutally murdered. But that's just me comparing these 3 stories. Snow really shouldn't be a reason to be put off reading The Hunting Party. So the narrative was quite cool in this one. It went from revealing that somebody was missing / had been murdered at the start of the book, and then it would jump back and forth in time with narratives from each of the different characters' perspectives without actually revealing who had been murdered, or obviously who did it, until quite far into the book, which I thought was a cool way to do it. And actually, I think the guest list was like that as well. Made it a very interactive experience. Encouraged the audience to draw their own conclusions and set up their own theories, which is a dangerous game because then you run into people picking the ending. And on that, didn't love the ending so much in this one. I think of the 3 books I'm talking about today, the ending in this one was the most like, oh yeah, yep, I see that. Like, I'm not saying it was obvious, I don't think that's really fair, because there were heaps of really juicy revelations that happened throughout the story. But I think it did get to a point quite close to the end where there was really, to me, only kind of one thing that it could have been. And I read this one straight after the guest list, which was a really tough act to follow. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen, my 3 Lucy Foley reads and thoughts on those reads. I'd definitely be open to reading another one of her books further down the track. I think I'll probably take a little hiatus from murder mysteries. But yes, if you've read any of these books, please let me know what your opinion was. I would love to know. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye! Just as a side note, just thinking now, I actually have 3 very vivid images in my mind of the 3 different settings from these stories, which is really interesting because Lucy Foley is not an overly descriptive writer, like in a good way, because I find that boring, but she must just give us enough subtle details for us to be able to fill in the gaps and just form our own kind of image of what these settings look like. Like, I can really picture the Paris apartment in great detail, down to the last light switch. But how cool would it be if we could all compare what we imagined settings from various novels to look like? Like, especially fantasy novels. Oh my god. I bet we'd all picture things so differently. How good if we could get one of those, like, police sketches where you tell them what the image is in your head. Like, yeah, the guy had a nose, and they're like, oh yeah. They draw a face and it looks exactly like the guy. How good if we could do that for our imagined settings? Yeah, how good would that be? Anyway, I'm getting distracted. I think it's the standing. So much more room for thinking.